Hey, what's up, y'all? My name is Devontae, and I sacrificed my time so you don't have to. I got a feeling this is going to be dominating the news cycle for a minute, but we got to talk about more in regards to this whole Britt Baker and MJF situation. So you got the context this morning, right? I explained it thoroughly. I broke it down at least on the surface level as to what happened with Britt Baker and MJF. Now that I'm off from work, I can go into a little bit more detail in regards to what the fuck happened overall as far as what built up to this, why did this happen. We'll take it from the top. I'll leave the links down in the description box below because there's a bunch of divided opinion on this when in reality I don't see any divided opinion or as to why there should be any divided opinion. Check this out. AEW reportedly suspended Britt Baker after backstage incident with MJF and Alicia Atal. This has been updated, so I'm happy. We got a little bit more clarification in regards to this, right? On this past Wednesday's Dynamite, Mercedes Moné mentioned that her All-In opponent Britt Baker had been suspended by AEW EVPs, the Young Bucks. It was presented as storyline, a way to reinforce the TBS Champions alliance with the villainous Elite, but according to reports, Moné's announcement may have been to cover for a legitimate suspension handed down to Baker by the AEW Disciplinary Committee. The news first came from the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter, which says Baker was fined and issued a 1 to 2 week suspension following a backstage confrontation with MJF during Dynamite's 250th episode last month. Dave Meltzer writes, "Details have been kept pretty quiet. It came from something backstage at the July 17th Dynamite where Baker allegedly said something about MJF and Alicia Atal, MJF's girlfriend, heard it and told him, and he confronted Baker. This led to an investigation with HR talking to people on January 24th, and I believe the disciplinary committee that did the investigation recommended that. The move was said to have been made in an effort to settle the situation quickly, rather than let it linger to lead to a bigger problem down the road. That's happened repeatedly in the past at AEW, including a situation involving Baker and Thunder Rosa that was eventually featured on the reality show AEW All Access. Allegations of Britt politicking backstage were also a part of indie veteran Lou Fisto's critique of the AEW women's locker room. It's not clear whether AEW owner, president, and head of creative Tony Khan was involved in the investigation or decision, as Meltzer reports, and I quote, "Everyone was attempting to keep this under wraps," unquote. At least as of late 2023, Bryan Danielson was a part of AEW's disciplinary committee, most of whom are all lawyers per Danielson. It was the committee that made the decision to fire CM Punk after his run-in with Jack Perry at All In last year, which came after issues between Punk and Perry had festered for months and between Punk and the Elite for more than a year. Back to Baker's suspension. The move was presumably timed to allow her to film the Comic-Con angle that led to the official announcement of her match with Moné and be back in time to resume the build for the August 25th bout at Wembley Stadium. Now, I want to go a little bit more in depth into this because I'm seeing people on Twitter talk about this situation also to give even more clarification on the situation. I'm not going to say the person's name because I don't think that's really relevant, but according to some people on Twitter, Britt Baker was heard talking down about MJF. MJF is told about this and confronts Baker. MJF gets so heated over this, he hits a wall. An investigation takes place and only Baker is suspended. This is the problem that everyone is having with the situation currently at the moment. Also, people are saying things like, and this is another tweet, MJF enters the women's locker room and punches a wall in frustration, no repercussions. Britt Baker makes a comment about a coworker she doesn't like, gets suspended. This is what everybody is having a problem with right now in regards to the whole situation. They're calling it bias. They're saying that MJF has a bunch of clout and therefore he is given a bunch of, less repercussions, I guess. He's given a lot more wiggle room to, get through the window, whereas, Britt Baker isn't given anything and therefore she has to suffer the consequences, whereas, MJF did just as worse and he didn't suffer any consequences. Here's another tweet. In 18 months, there's going to be footage of Britt Baker and Alicia Atal's argument and Britt is about to debut at Survivor Series 2025. That's actually fucking funny. Yeah, there's a lot of divided opinion on this. Everybody is saying that it's biased and they don't like the double standard that Britt Baker is suffering consequences versus MJF is not getting any consequences whatsoever. Here, I'm seeing another here. Britt Baker has been suspended and fined by AEW due to some backstage. Okay, we know that already. Not seeing anything else. Hang on, Mercedes when they announced Britt Baker, but turns out, hang on, is there anything else? Okay. Yeah, I think we have everything for the most part. I wish I knew what it all stemmed from, as far as what Britt Baker was saying that Alicia overheard to go tell MJF, which I'm assuming that's going to probably get out rather sooner than later. But like I said, going back to the whole situation in regards to people divided on the opinion in regards to MJF and Britt Baker, I completely disagree. I'm tired of this nonsense. I'm tired of people being able to give in and they did the same thing with Jack Perry and CM Punk also. It's like I don't like that. I don't like the fact that someone gets to start something, and just because the person responds, and in the case of CM Punk, there wasn't even really a response, but just overall, someone responds to the altercation, they therefore should suffer repercussions also. That's bullshit. Now, I will say that MJF could have definitely handled it a lot better. Like I said in the other video, he should have been a little bit more mature about the situation, given his position within the company. But when you're in the heat of the moment, man, what can I say? And like I said, I would give that caveat to CM Punk also. I would definitely say he was in the heat of the moment. I would definitely give that caveat to him. I think his response was wrong, but you have to take into end results just like any other court. They will, give you a lesser charge if it was if you murder someone in a crime of passion. Consequences will still be dealt, but it was a crime of passion. You do have to take that into account. And I think MJF going there, not putting his hands on her. Now, one may argue him barging into the women's locker room. If that's true, yeah, there probably should have been consequences in regards to that. And we don't know. Maybe MJF did get a pay cut for that week. Maybe MJF did get some consequences. But to pretend as if Britt Baker didn't start any of this, and therefore she should get her getting any kind of repercussions, therefore MJF should get the same kind of repercussions. Nah, man. The only issue at this is that MJF walked into the women's locker room. If that happens to be true, then yeah, maybe he should have suffered consequences. And who knows? Maybe he did suffer consequences as far as something having to do with his pay. You don't know that, but what I do know is I'm not going to sit here and pretend that that's on an equal playing field. Not to mention, like I mentioned with Jack Perry and CM Punk also, this is, at least from my accounts, I don't see anything else or anybody else say anything about this. From my understanding, this is MJF's first time having any kind of backstage altercation. He didn't put his hands on Britt Baker, he just yelled at her. He punched the wall, yeah, he got frustrated. He probably made a scene over all this. Like I said, I don't agree with him walking into the women's locker room if this happens to be the case. But I'm not going to pretend as if what he was saying, it wasn't a response to what Britt Baker started. I'm not going to pretend as if what Britt Baker did, this isn't as if she doesn't have a past history. I heard from someone in the comment section, and mind you, this is merely just a rumor. I do not want to confirm this at all. I don't want to confirm this. But from my understanding, with Britt Baker, we already know the situation she has had in the past with people like Thunder Rosa, for an example, right? I also heard from other people. I heard two people say this. I heard this through the grapevine on Reddit, which I know not really a reliable source. And I heard someone mention this in the comment section on the last video. I gotta look this up, but apparently Mariah May and Britt Baker had some issues also in the past. I'm not here to confirm that. I'm not here to say whether or not that's true, but what I am hearing here is that there's a pattern of behavior in regards to Britt Baker running her mouth. You've seen her on social media a couple of months ago when she started to talk shit about Tony Khan's booking in regards to her situation, only to notice that you had a seizure. You were injured. I don't know if you had a seizure at that point in time or if it was a seizure prior to all this when she made that remarks about the booking situation with the guys. And mind you, I think she mentioned MJF in that regard also. Like, when was it happening? Was it happening before the injury or after the injury? Either way you look at it, you're out. I gotta believe how Tony Khan actually approached the situation was, well, can I just see how you're getting along in regards to your recovery period before I just put you on television like this? And again, if this happened, I'm not even saying this happened after the seizure. If this happened the seizure, then good God Almighty, absolutely. You just had a fucking, or was it a seizure? I think, was it a seizure or was it what was their situation? I think, was it a seizure? Oh no, I think it was a stroke. Excuse me, I apologize. You just had a fucking stroke. Like, was it after or was it before that? I think Serena Deeb had a seizure, but regardless, if it was after, definitely we need to wait and see how you recover. If this was before, regardless, you were still injured. I can't even remember, was it a shoulder injury or was it a back injury? I think it was a back injury, if I'm not mistaken. You can't rush these things. You can't. And I'm pretty sure that's the approach that Tony Khan took. Yet Britt Baker got upset about the booking situation, and she ran her mouth about those guys too. Everywhere you look around with Britt Baker, there's always a situation. And all I can think of is the fact that Tony put her on a pedestal at one point, which he did. He brought her in, and we can all see it. She was supposed to be the Charlotte Flair of the women's division. She took that and got an ego on herself. Then all the other women started to pile in within AEW, and all the attention got taken away from her. She took a backseat to people who actually worked on themselves and actually got themselves to a prominent position, like a Toni Storm, for an example. Then other women started to usurp her also. And now she wants to get into confrontations everywhere because she's angry, most likely about her spot being taken away from her. And then look at this situation right here, bruh. You ran your mouth about a fellow coworker for no reason. From my understanding, that's what I'm seeing right now. You ran your mouth about a fellow coworker for no reason. And therefore, people are supposed to take your side? People are supposed to be angry because, what, you guys didn't get equal punishment? How about the fact that one person has done this repeatedly over time for the better part of at least 3 years, from my understanding? How about the fact that she started the entire confrontation to begin with by talking shit about MJF and Alicia for no reason? I don't see any reason. Can someone bring up a reason? Maybe I'm not reading any of this. Maybe I'm missing the point here. Maybe I'm missing context here. It seems like she started all this for no reason. So therefore, that's why she got the consequences as harsh as she did compared to what MJF got. Which, if he didn't get anything, like I said, I might be a little bit more skewed to maybe he should have gotten something just based strictly off him going into the women's locker room and doing destruction and damaging property by putting a hole in the wall. That I can probably say, okay, maybe he should get some repercussions as far as a pay cut is considered. But to take into account that his emotions at that time, what? Well, I'm not even looking at the aspect because people are looking at this from a double standard standpoint by stating that MJF is a top guy and that Britt Baker for the most part is nobody, and therefore that's why. No. Maybe Britt Baker isn't a bigger name than MJF, but in regards to the women's division, no, she's a pretty solid name also. And I guarantee you, if some jobber were to do something and Britt Baker were to do something, they get rid of the jobber before they get rid of Britt Baker. Like, what are you talking about here? And in regards to MJF, I guarantee you if MJF pulled anything, he would have been reprimanded. For the love of God, he fired CM Punk. I guarantee you he would have went after MJF the exact same fucking way. It's bullshit to look at this as a double standard when in reality we can clearly see that there's a pattern of behavior, and that's why they took repercussions against Britt Baker versus MJF. But leave it up to the internet. Of course, they have to go directly to the sex thing, right? Oh, she's a woman, and therefore that's why she's getting consequences. It's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit, man. It is typical internet behavior in regards to why they think the way that they think in regards to the situation. But like I said, reverting back to the first video, like I talked about beforehand, all this, and mind you, I will give credit where credit is due to Tony Khan for not letting it fester like he did all the other situations. I will give him credit where credit is due that he acted upon this way faster than he did any of the previous situations, and obviously response to people like CM Punk and Jack Perry and the rest of the EVP. But that doesn't take away from the fact that Britt Baker, like I said, has had a pattern of behavior. And like I said, I can't really confirm the Mariah May stuff like everybody else is talking about. But if that also was a situation that happened, then you had to know that Britt Baker was a common denominator in all of this. And maybe you didn't want to hurt her feelings. Maybe you felt the timing would have been bad, especially given the situation in regards to her health. But if she's a situation as far as causing all these problems, in my opinion, you should have took action right then and there as far as Britt Baker is considered. Like I said, when it comes to Britt Baker, people like her, you can clearly tell. And like I said, God bless her as far as her diagnosis is considered. God bless her in regards to her health. I hope she feels better. This has nothing to do with her health. This has nothing to do with her being a woman. This could be any sex. When you act like a bitch, you get treated like one. Simple. It's just as simple as that. Consequences is dealt to those who ask for it. You consistently put yourself into a position where you're making bad decisions that is putting you in a position to look bad and make the other people within the company, or in total make the company in itself look bad because of your horrible decision making as an adult after seeing previous altercations with other people who literally put the company in a damaging position as far as PR is considered. Of course, you are a detriment. So with that being said, Tony should have nipped that in the bud if that whole situation is legitimate about Mariah May. Tony should have nipped it in the bud for things that we can actually confirm, like the Twitter fucking spout that she had when she went on her tangent back in November. All this could have legitimately been, done without this building up to this situation right here. You could have easily put the hand of God or the fear of God within Britt Baker right then and there for her to not having going backstage and running her mouth for a situation to have to be like this. Now imagine if this happened like 3 weeks later. Imagine this happened like a month later. Now she'd be putting you in a horrible position where you have to think about whether or not you have to ruin your match going into Wembley Stadium, or you play a double standard to her, because make no mistake about it, these guys and these people want to talk about double standard in regards to Britt Baker and MJF. I guarantee you right now, you really want to see a double standard? Imagine if this happened a week before Wembley Stadium. Nothing would have happened. She would have not gotten any consequences at that point in time. She would have wrestled at Wembley Stadium. She would have gotten her payoff from Wembley Stadium, and you would have essentially given her a vacation. Hell, she might be given a vacation right now. I didn't see that suspension come with, oh, she's going to be suspended without pay. Maybe that happens to be the case, but I'm not seeing anybody mention anything like that. So from the looks of it, who the hell really got, the short end of the stick? It seems like they just sent Britt Baker home to not really elevate or escalate the situation at the moment. So for everybody out there pandering, kissing Britt Baker's ass, even though she has done a multitude of things to horribly escalate the situation, nah, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it at all. It's a bunch of fucking bullshit, bruh. And honestly, looking at this entire situation at hand, I still hold true to the fact that Britt Baker should be given some worser consequences to really put it across, really mark it home, really bring it across home. Not to just people like Britt Baker, but to really tell the rest of the locker room that we are sick and tired of this shit. We are tired of you putting us in a position where we look like fucking imbeciles in front of the media. We are tired of looking like we're secondhand to people like WWE. We are tired of putting ourselves into a position where people who can make money for our company or draw for our company are really thinking to themselves, do they want to stay in a Bush League company constantly being caught in controversy? By the way, conveniently always around this time makes you want to scratch your fucking chinny chin. I digress though, putting on my tinfoil cap for a moment. You should do something to send a fucking message to the rest of the locker room that this kind of behavior will no longer be tolerated. Really make an example out of Britt Baker. Really make an example out of the person who's acting so immature at the moment to not even think about the consequences in regards to how your company looks, in regards to how the wrestlers look. Make an example out of her, and she has a problem with that, then guess what? She could take her ass, let's see if they even want to accept her. She could take her ass to WWE, where I know for a fact she'll be set straight. Don't ask me, ask CM Punk how that works out. Pretty damn well for both parties, right? Other than that, please miss me with the nonsense. Please miss me with the double standard talk. Please miss me when she has a pattern of behavior, when in fact if someone else was across her, she would have not been given any consequences in relation to that other person, especially if it was a jobber, especially if this was 1 week out of Wembley Stadium. You guys, for the most part, are playing the double standard. You're only saying this because she happens to be a woman. I wonder if you people, the same people who are talking like this, will have a problem if, for an example, Nyla Rose was not given any consequences about this and MJF was given consequences about this. Would you have a problem with it then? What if it happened to be a black person, huh? And yeah, I'm going to play this game because this is the kind of game that they want to play. It's bullshit. It is absolute bullshit. They know exactly what they're doing. They already called the company sexist for this so-called double standard without even looking at the pattern at hand. I'm not buying it. Twitter, all the people who are allegedly calling for this, please miss me with the nonsense and please cry some fucking more. Not listening to it, not hearing it. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. How do you feel about this whole situation in regards to Britt Baker and MJF? Do you feel like MJF should have gotten consequences? Do you feel like Britt Baker, if in any other given situation, she herself would be pertaining in regards to the consequences not being dealt to her because the double standard would have absolutely favored her in response else to anybody else lower than her in name value? Do you believe that Britt Baker not only started this situation, but has a pattern behavior, in my opinion, that should have been held accountable months ago before even gotten to this point? And do you think to yourself that Tony Khan, even though he has did the right thing and intervened at this very moment before even let her infester, did it fester already to this point where it could have easily been cut in half and it could have easily been reprimanded at the time before it even escalated to this point in time? It's a bunch of things that you should take into context and really ask yourself before jumping to the conclusion of sexism or jumping into the conclusion of favoritism being played. You're only saying that at the moment because you want to virtue signal to the people who are currently in your fucking circle. And for that, your opinion means jack shit to me, and you can actually go fuck yourself. Just my opinion. Not really, it's a fact. But with that being said, I'll be catching you guys later. Fucking crazy, man. Crazy situation. It's always with AEW though, am I right? Deuces, P, Ice.